following are different types of an array. One is one-dimensional array, two-dimensional array and multi-dimensional array. Then here always value of I will be 0, that is starting element, because in an array first index is 0. 1, 2, 3 is the first row elements and 4, 5, 6 are the elements of second row, and suppose A is name of an array. Dear students, welcome to CS classes. I am Ravi Kumar KR, lecturer in computer science, Vidhyaashram PU College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Students, let us start our session with the new chapter, that is chapter 11, arrays. In this, the weightage of the chapter is 10 marks. Here 2 MCQs and 1 3 marks question, 1 5 marks question. So total weightage of this chapter is 10. In this session, we are going to talk about definition of an array, different types of arrays, one and two dimensional arrays. Now let us start our discussion with the definition of arrays. So what is an array? An array is a collection of elements where all the elements are of same data type under the same name. So this is the definition of an array. So it is a group of elements or collection of elements, and all the elements are of one data type. You know what a data type? In C++, we have int, float, double, character. So all the elements should be of only one type, that is nothing but an array. So here, for example, if I say int is a data type, if I say int is an array, then all the elements will be of type only integer. So for example, these are the elements of an array. So this is an integer array. Suppose if I say float is a data type. So here if I say float, so you can say 10.30 minus 7.6 and comma and here 7.0. So these are all elements of an array. So here if you observe this, this is all the elements of only one data type, that is int, and in this example all elements are of data type float. Similarly, you can also have an element or elements of type character. Character is a data type, so here all the elements will be of a character. See, this is an array. Array is nothing but a group of elements and all the elements of only one data type. So by mistake or by chance, if you have elements like 10, comma 7.6 or comma and we can say character, yes. So suppose if you group together these elements, so this is not called as an array because it is of different data types. So here array is a collection of elements where all the elements are of one data type or same data type. That is the definition of array, and it is comes under only one name. I am giving only one name for this. For example, A. A is an array of integer array, or I can name this as B. This is name of an array, and this is another C. It is a character array. We can represent, see, under one name we are storing different values. And students, in programming concept, we know that one variable can hold only one value. See, and to overcome the drawback of that, we are using loops. In loops, we can, with the help of one variables, it stores number of values. But ultimately, it stores only one value, that is the last value of a loop. And to overcome those drawbacks, we have a concept of arrays. So array under here, we are going to store number of values under only one name, that is an array. Now let us see what are the different types of an array. So here following are different types of an array. One is one-dimensional array, two-dimensional array and multi-dimensional array. Now let us see the definition of one-dimensional array. So what is one-dimensional array? Here it is an array in which each element is accessed by using only one subscript, and each element is accessed by only one subscript, and the only one subscript represent the position of element in an array. So this is the definition of one-dimensional array. Declaration of one-dimensional array in a program. So what is the syntax? Here the data type, space, array name and size. Now look at this example here. Int is a data type, mark says name of an array, and 50, this is the size of an array. So this is how we declare array in programming. So here int is a data type, name of an array is marks, it is an identifier, and size is 50. So here this is called a subscript. So in this example, in one-dimensional array, there is only one subscript that is written within a square bracket. That is the meaning of one subscript for one-dimensional array. Now we can look at this example here. See, this is how we assume an array or the element is stored in computer memory. Suppose here A, this A is name of an array. A is name of an array. And here, suppose if I write elements 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. These are all nothing but elements of an array. These are all nothing but elements of an array. And here, this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 are called index, index of an array. And here always array index start with 0. 0 is the first index of an array. So this is how we represent array in computer memory. And if you observe this, here in the previous example, we have seen int. Int means it stands for integer array. So accordingly, the values are of type integer. So this is nothing but an integer array. In integer array, A is name of an array. And here, these are called elements of an array. And here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is nothing but the index of an array. And always the first index of an array is 0. And how do we represent the values? And here, this 0 represents one index, second index, third, fourth, 5. If you observe this in this example, there are 5 elements. So the size of an array is 5. And the last index is 4. So last index is 5 minus 1, that is equals to 4. So 0 to 4. First index is 0 always. Last index is 4, that is 5 minus 1. That represents last index of an array. And here, how do we access the elements of an array? How do we do that? Suppose for example 10. So 10 is, what is the position of 10? That is 0. Name of an array is A. So we can write as A of 0. A of 0, it represents the value 10. So this is the first element of an array. Similarly, 20, it is A of 1 is 20. Similarly, if we have the 50 here, A of 4, that is equals 50. So this is how we access the elements of an array. Here A is name of an array and 0 is the index. So here this is one-dimensional array because it has only one index. So we have only one value within a square bracket. It is called an index or subscript of an array. So always the array subscript start with 0. And the last index is n minus 1. Suppose size is n and this is n minus 1 is the last index of an array. Here A is name of an array. So this is the definition of an array. Here array is a group of elements of one data type where all the elements are stored under one name. That is, in this example, A is the name of an array. And how do we access the element? By using only one subscript, that is one value inside this bracket, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. See, this is how we represent the arrays in memory. And here, this 5000, 5001 or nothing but memory address, that is the memory address of the elements of an array. This is how we represent array in computer memory. And next concept is initialization of one-dimensional array. Now we know how to declare an array. In the previous example, here this is how to declare an array. Now how do we assign value to this? See, what is the meaning of values this? See, suppose if I say, if I variable in programming, int a is one variable, and here if I say a equal to 10, so this is assignment statement. So we are assigning values to a variable a. Similarly, if array is declared, how do we assign values into an array or to the elements of an array? So the syntax says this is one-dimensional array, int a of 5. This says int stands for data type, a is name of an array, and 5 is size of an array, equals, and we are using flower bracket. Here we are giving 5 elements separated by comma. Comma is the delimiter to separate 2 elements of an array, and close the bracket with semicolon. So this is how we initialize the elements of an array. So accordingly, if you observe this, as per this is the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here a is name of an array. A of 0 stands for 9, means we represent a of 0 means 9. Suppose if I want to print the value 2, index 3, so here a of 3 is 2. See, this is how we represent or access the elements of an array through one subscript. So this is initialization of an array or assigning values to an array. In this example, 5 is the size. There are 5 elements in this example. In the next slide, and accessing the elements of an array. Yes, as we have seen in the previous slide, see, consider an example like int a of 5. As we have seen in the previous example, int a of 5, there are 5 values. How do we access it? By using one subscript, name of the array plus index of an array. So suppose if there are in the previous example only 5 elements, we can write 5 values, a of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if there are 500 elements, then how do we do that? Then again there is no other go. We have to write the index a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, up to last index is a of 4999. That is how to access the elements of an array. But if you write so many statements in a program would be very lengthy. So to avoid that, we are using loop. Normally we are using for loop. So we are using for loop to access the elements of an array or to work with an array. Actually, there is no rules as such to use for loop. It's a general practice to use for loop in or while working with arrays. So we are using arrays, and here we are using separate one array for reading the values into an array, and separate for loop for calculation, and separate for loop for printing elements of an array. So here in this example, we can read 5 elements into an array through an input device by writing the following program fragment. So this is a program format by using for loop. Here cout, enter the elements, and here for loop I equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. Then here always value of I will be 0, that is starting element, because in an array first index is 0. So a of 0, that is a is a name of an array. In that case, here starting value is 0 and last value is 5. In the example, size is 5, it should be less than 5. Means less than 5 means last index is 4. So it should be less than 5, I plus plus. And here we are using C in A of I. So this is how the for loop works. So it repeats the statement as long as the condition it is true. Accordingly, is going to access 5 values. Means suppose A is a name of an array, A of 0. Second value will be in A of 1, 2, 3, 4. Because size is 4, last index is 5 minus 1, that is 4, that is the A of 4. In that case, is going to access 5 elements into an array. Suppose this is only for reading, that is input statement, scene statement. Now if I want to print the same array, again as I told you, we are using separate for loop for reading, separate for loop for calculation and separate for loop for output the elements of an array. Accordingly, if I want to print, so the elements are, again I'm using for loop. Again 0 is the first index, condition is less than 5, means it goes up to 4. 4 is the last index, I plus plus, C out A of I. So here A is the name of an array, I is the index or subscript. Here also C out A of I. So accordingly, it is going to print the elements of an array of the array int A of 5. This is how we access the elements of one-dimensional array. Now let us see a simple program to show the working of one-dimensional array. Here the program starts with the header files. This is declaration of an array. I is loop control variable and n is number of elements. Clear screen. How many elements? So C in n. We have to give the values of n. We have to read the elements and enter the element. The loop goes from starting is 0 less than n, because we have given the value n is the number of element, nothing but size of an array. So it should be less than n I plus plus C in A of I. That's what you have seen in the previous slide. This is the statement to read values into an array. Again, I want to print the same thing here. Again, see out elements are, I'm using separate for loop for to print the elements of an array. Accordingly, I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, C out A of I. Then this is the for loop, and again close the program with get ch and close the bracket. So when you run the program, see it will ask us for how many elements. Suppose if you input 5, you are supposed to enter 5 values. It will ask you, you have to enter 10, 20, 50, 40, 30. You are supposed to enter 5 values separated by a space. Then accordingly, when you press enter, it prints the values as it is. So this is a simple program how to enter values into an array and print the same or elements of the same array. So this is a simple program to show the working of one-dimensional array. Let us talk about the another type of array, that is two-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array. So what is the definition here? It is an array in which each element is accessed by 2 subscripts. In the one-dimensional array, the definition is accessed with 1 subscript, but here it is 2 subscripts, and the subscripts represent position of elements in the array. And here 2 subscripts, the elements of two-dimensional array are represented as rows and column. Here we represent array, two-dimensional array in the form of table or in the form of rows and column. For example, if I say there are, suppose we take an example like this. In this example, there are 3 rows. This is row 0, row 1, row 2. This is the row, and this is column 0, column 1, column 2. And here if your elements can be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90. See, this is how we represent the two-dimensional array in computer memory. So here what is the meaning of this? As we said, there are 2 subscripts. Here 1 subscript for rows, this is, and another subscript for column. That is why there are 2 subscripts. In this example, there are 3 rows and there are 3 columns. So we can say this is an array with 3 rows and 3 columns. So 3 rows and 3 columns, totally 3 into 3 is 9. So if we can store 9 values in this example. So here the first stands for rows and second subscript stands for column. So we are using 2 subscript, 1 separate for columns and 1 separate for rows. And always first subscript stands for rows and second subscript stands for column. So accordingly, suppose if I give the name A is name of an array. So in this example, it has 3 rows and 3 columns. There are 9 elements, 3 into 3, that is rows into column 9. So it holds 9 values. Name of an array is A, 3 rows and 3 columns. It is an example for two-dimensional array. And in the next slide, we will see how do we declare two-dimensional array. And in the previous example, we have seen how do we declare one-dimensional array, that is only with one subscript. But here, in this example, data type, space, name of an array, and the row size as well as column size, semicolon. So this is one subscript, another subscript. And here example, int is a data type, A is name of an array, 2, 3. So what is it here in this example? It is a two-dimensional array. There are 2 subscript, and 2 stands for rows and 3 stands for column. So accordingly, 2 into 3, that is equal to 6. So we can store 6 elements. There are 2 rows and 3 columns. So we can assume that, see here, the elements are arranged in 2 rows and 3 columns. So we can assume the elements are like this. There are 2 rows and 3 columns. Here A is name of an array, and the first index is row 0, 1, and this is 0, 1, 2. So this is the index, because always array index starts with 0. And suppose elements, for example, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So in this example, A of 2, 3 means 2 rows and 3 columns. So this is 2 into 3 equals to 6. So it holds, or we can store 6 values in this two-dimensional array. Here, this always array index starts with 0. So this is 0. Now the position of 10. What is the position of 10 here? This is A is name of array, 0 and 0. So here A, name of an array, with first index is 0 and second index is 0. It represents the value 10, or the position of 10 is at this index. This first one stands for row, stands for column. Accordingly, suppose if you talk about 50 here, A is 1 and column is 1. So A is name of an array and row is 1 and column is 1, that is equals to, or the position of the element 50. See, this is how we access the element of two-dimensional array, or this is how we know the position of elements of an array through the index, that is one for rows as well as one for column. This is an example for two-dimensional array. This is how we assume the arrangement of element in computer memory. And here in the next slide, we'll see how to initialize the values of two-dimensional array. And in the previous example, we have seen how to initialize the values of one-dimensional array. Now let us see the initialization of two-dimensional array. So here int A on 2 and 3. It means 2 rows and 3 columns. There are 6 elements. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here there are 6 elements. And because the size already is 6, and here the first 3 elements stands for first row, and this is for second row. This is row first row and this is for second row. We can assume that 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. So this is, we can store the elements in this way or in the form of tables with rows and column. So this is 1, 2, 3 is the first row elements, and 4, 5, 6 are the elements of second row. And suppose A is name of an array. So this is how to initialize the values of two-dimensional array with this syntax. Next slide, we'll see how do we access the elements of two-dimensional array. As we have seen in the one-dimensional array, we are using one for loop for one-dimensional array, and here in two-dimensional array, we are using nested loop or 2 loops, one inside another, to access the elements of two-dimensional array. And here, for example, A, 2, 3, here 2 rows and 3 columns. How do we do that? See here, for I equal to 0, I less than to I plus plus. So this is one for loop. Inside this, for j equal to 0, j less than 3, j plus plus. Please observe this. This is I element. This stands for row, and we are using j. It stands for column. In this example, as per the syntax, there are two rows. So outer loop start from 0 up to 2, and j is the value of column is 3. Inner loop start from 0 up to 3. So this is how we use this j loop inside another for loop, that is I loop. It is called nested loop, or we are using one loop inside another for loop to work with two-dimensional array. So accordingly, we are using scene statement, and here a of I comma j. Here I stands for rows and j stands for column. Here observe this, we are using two for loops or nested for loop to work with two-dimensional array. And again the same rules holds good. We are using separate two for loops for reading the values into a two-dimensional array, and separate for loop for calculation, and separate two for loops for printing the elements of two-dimensional array. So this is how we access the elements of an two-dimensional array. Look at the example here. Elements are for I equal to 0, I less than 2, because there are 2 rows and 3 columns. And inside this j loop, this is for rows and this is for column. Inside this, we are printing a of I comma j. So in the previous slide, it is seen a of I comma j. In the sense, the input statement, we are entering 6 values into two-dimensional array, and here we are printing the same elements of two-dimensional array. One is input statement and it is output statement here. So this is how we use for loop, one inside another, to access the elements of two-dimensional array. Students, so far we have discussed about arrays definition, and syntax and example of one-dimensional and two-dimensional array. Let us continue our discussion in my next session. Thank you so much.